So you want to get a job at a startup. That's probably why you clicked on this video. But I've seen so many people go about this the wrong way. There's not a lot of good information that I've found, especially on YouTube, about what it actually takes or what it's like to get a job at a startup, especially a venture-backed startup. So I want to share some of my insights and my experience. Hopefully I can help you out with it too. This video is sponsored by Spindrift. Not really. But unless you want to, Spindrift. So why should you listen to me about this? Well, I actually work at a venture-backed startup right now. And I did not work at a startup before this job. I didn't have any previous experience at any point with a startup. And I didn't even apply online. And I was still able to land the gig. I worked at a big corporate name that you'd recognize for a couple of years. And then I actually worked for the government as a junior staffer for a year. So my experience was not really in line with what you'd expect to find at a venture-backed startup. And I know it sometimes can feel like that you're banging your head against the wall, that you can't find exactly what you're looking for, that nobody responds to you, or maybe that you just can't even find a company that seems right. So I want to hopefully make that process a little easier and share with you some of the things I learned along the way. So I want to give you 3 quick tips to help you with this process. So 1 is how to think about startup hiring. 2 is who you are versus your resume. And 3 is be creative to be noticed. So let's break each of these down. Number 1, how to think about startup hiring. So if you're otherwise not so familiar with startup hiring, it's a bit of a different game than a big corporation or government or anything like that. In a big corporation, you're probably going to have a very established pipeline from maybe target schools, target industries, other companies, and everybody's filtered in to the HR department or maybe their respective department where they're getting hired. They'll scan resumes, they'll look for the right fits, and they'll manage salaries and quotas, and there's a big process. At startups, especially earlier stage startups, none of that really applies. It's a lot more run and gun, and I'll explain what I mean. So in my own personal experience, when you're looking for somebody to hire at one of these smaller startups, usually you have an overwhelming amount of work or a pressing need that needs to be filled, and you need to go and find the right person for that job. Basically, full stop. If you're an engineer or a designer, marketer, there are a lot of different roles that are very specific or very niche or maybe aren't well defined even. And at a startup, you are going to have to just kind of roll with the punches and do whatever you have to do in a particular role. Unlike a big corporation where job responsibilities and expectations are usually very set, they know exactly what they need and the skill set that they need it for, and it's your job as the applicant to basically try to fit into that box as close as you can. Now, this doesn't apply to all startups because if you're like in a technical role, obviously they're going to need somebody who has that specific technical skill set. But for a lot of you watching this video, you're probably not fitting that category, so that's why you're looking for a little guidance. So recap. Big corporation, very set, very structured, step by step by step. Startup, a lot more run and gun, one-off, a lot more adaptable to the individual candidate even. Tip 2, who you are versus what your resume says. This is one I think everybody kind of intuitively knows but never admits. If you've ever seen somebody's resume, maybe even your own resume, where it lists out a bunch of things about you, where you went to school, your previous jobs, there's usually some hokey section about like your interests, which is like skiing and like reading books or something. And then there's a section with skills that people list like Microsoft Office and other nonsense that really doesn't make any sense. After you read a resume, you understand that that's not the whole story about a person. And especially at a startup, that can be a huge advantage for you if you don't have the exact experience that the job description is listed for. So who you are is going to make a huge difference in the startup hiring process, and it's merely on you to showcase that to whoever is potentially hiring you. So if you want to work at a startup, something that's not going to show up in your resume, but is absolutely essential, is that you are dependable, you are a self-starter, you're smart, and you're willing to do things that aren't specifically within your job description, because your job description might very well change. That's the nature of startups, especially ones that are venture-backed and are really fast-growing. So all that to say is don't let your resume limit the potential opportunities that you look for, and we can make a whole nother video about where you should exactly apply and what you might be interested in, and we could get into that. But just know that you have a lot more opportunities than you probably think you do. And the third tip is be creative to be noticed. So this could be fun, depending on how you look at it, or terrifying. But either way, there's an enormous opportunity to get noticed by the right people in a startup environment versus a big corporate environment. In a big corporate environment, people aren't really looking specifically, unless they're recruiters, at potential candidates, whereas at startups, especially the fast-growing ones, everybody is looking for people that they can refer and hire onto. It's true in big corporate settings, but at startups especially, it's essential that people get hired and recruited because that's how the company grows. So be creative to be noticed. What are some ways that you could do this? Well, for example, in my particular case, I actually found the email of the CEO and emailed him directly about the opportunity. I might even put it up on the screen here and show you what I said, but you just have to go direct sometimes and just lay it out in a way that people respond to. So find the hiring manager or the favorite person at the company. Maybe it's their marketing person and they can route you to the right person, but don't be afraid to reach out to them directly with cold outreach. Another way would be interacting with their content online. Like if they have an active social media presence, be somebody who shows up in comments or reposts or something like that, because at a small company, everybody follows their social media and chances are one of those employees are going to see you or at least know who you are if you decide to actually apply or contact them. Oh, and the last one is be proactive and do something without needing to be asked. So if you see a startup, a lot of startups, for example, have like really bad websites because websites can be really expensive and they're focused on other areas. Or maybe they need an email sequencing or something. If you just take the first step and improve something for them and just send it to them and say, hey, I'm interested, I'm open to jobs, I'd really like to work with you guys, I did this work. That goes a long way because startups usually don't have enough people, they don't have enough time, they don't have enough of hardly anything when they're growing so fast. If somebody takes that step of eliminating the work of going to find them and they come to them, that is so valuable, not only from like a recruiter standpoint, but from other people on the team you'll be working on if you get hired eventually, because they get to see your quality of work right out of the gate. So that's a huge level up and a huge hack. More people need to be doing that. So those are some tips. Hopefully you found those helpful. If you like this video, leave a like and comment down below what your current situation is. Are you looking for a job at the startup? How's it going? Have you had any success? I'll try to look at them and respond. If you need any tips or any help, or if you have any feedback on the video, let me know, as this is video number 1 on my intro to YouTube. But if you want to see some other videos like this in the future, let me know and you'll see them shortly. See you in the next one.